Ghana's foreign economic policy historically has been deeply intertwined with its interactions on the global stage. Think of it as a reflection of Ghana's place in the world, shaped by trade, aid, and investment.
Right, and for a long time, these economic considerations played second fiddle to traditional foreign policy, which was often politically driven. It's like politics was the main act and economics was just the supporting role.
Exactly, but it's crucial to remember the legacy of colonialism. It's not just about independence, it's about asserting an Africanness, a unique identity on the world stage.
Professor McInnes observed this shift, noting that African nations were no longer simply accepting external rule.
So, how did this desire for a distinct African path influence Ghana's economic choices? Was it about finding a third way, as Adebayo Adedeji suggested, distinct from both the communist and Western models?
Precisely. And this quest for a unique path also meant grappling with the economic policies pushed by donor countries, policies that sometimes clashed with the realities on the ground in Africa. It's a complex interplay of global forces and local aspirations.
Let's delve into Ghana's foreign policy shift under the Provisional National Defense Council, or PNDC. This period is really interesting because it shows how a country's ideology can dramatically change its international relations.
Exactly. The PNDC came to power through a military coup on December 31st, 1981. Initially, under what's referred to as PNDCI, the regime adopted a socialist stance, aligning itself with pro-East countries. Think nationalization of key industries and a focus on social welfare programs.
Right, but this didn't last. By April 1983, PNDC-2 emerged, marking a radical transformation. What factors do you think contributed to this shift?
Well, Ghana was facing severe economic challenges. The socialist policies weren't delivering the expected results, and the country needed financial assistance. This led to a move towards more Western-aligned economic policies, like embracing structural adjustment programs.
So the shift wasn't purely ideological, but also driven by pragmatic economic needs. It's a classic case of national interest trumping ideological purity, right?
Precisely. This transition led to a more aggressive foreign economic policy, focusing on attracting foreign investment and boosting trade. It also coincided with a gradual liberalization of the political space, moving away from strict socialist control.
So what exactly explains Ghana's shift in policy during the PNDC era? It's a puzzle of ideology meeting economic reality.
Absolutely. We need a framework to understand it. This is where Krasner's state-centric approach comes in. He argues that states act as autonomous entities, pursuing their own interests, even against societal pressures.
Right. Then there's Holste, focusing on how national interests shape foreign policy. Did Ghana redefine its national interests to align with a more open, globalized economy?
Precisely. And Nye's concept of soft power. How did Ghana use its cultural and political influence to attract foreign investment and aid during this period? It wasn't all about hard power.
Good point. Finally, Grindle and Thomas's work on policy implementation is key. They emphasize the importance of political and administrative capacity. Did Ghana have the structures in place to effectively manage this rapid economic liberalization?
These theoretical lenses will help us dissect Ghana's policy shift, looking at the interplay between global forces and domestic capabilities. It's about understanding the why behind the what.
Foreign policy, at its core, is about how countries interact. Think of it as a complex web of relationships, influenced by a nation's goals and its leaders' beliefs.
Exactly. These interactions aren't random. They're shaped by objective factors, things like a country's resources, its geographical location, and its military strength. But it's also influenced by ideology.
Ideology plays a huge role. Are the leaders driven by political realism, focusing on power and national interest above all else? Or are they idealists, prioritizing cooperation and global values? This shapes their approach to everything from trade agreements to military alliances.
And this has been going on for centuries. Since the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648, which established the modern state system, countries have been engaging in political, economic, and even cultural exchanges. These interactions have only become more complex and frequent over time, especially with globalization.
Ghana's foreign economic relations, particularly trade, aid, and investment, often took a back seat to political considerations. Think of it like this. Foreign policy was the main course, and economics was just a side dish.
So how did this play out in practice?
Well, trade agreements, for example, might be influenced more by political alliances than pure economic benefit. Aid programs could be accepted or rejected based on the donor country's political stance rather than Ghana's actual needs.
Can you give me a specific example?
During the Cold War, Ghana, under the PNDC, initially leaned towards socialist ideologies. This meant prioritizing trade and aid from Eastern Bloc countries, even if Western nations offered more favorable economic terms. It was a clear case of political bias influencing economic decisions.
So it wasn't always about maximizing economic gains.
Exactly. The focus was often on maintaining political alignment, even if it meant sacrificing potential economic advantages. This highlights the complex interplay between politics and economics in Ghana's foreign policy. Ghana's early foreign policy was significantly shaped by the Cold War. Initially, under Nkrumah, there was a tilt towards socialist ideologies.
Right. This was reflected in policies that favored state control and alignment with Eastern Bloc countries. But how did this ideological stance impact Ghana's economic relations?
Well, it led to increased trade and aid from the Soviet Union and China. However, this also meant limited access to Western markets and investments, which were crucial for long-term economic growth.
So the shift in 1983 under the PNDC was a major turning point?
Absolutely. The move away from socialism towards a more Western-aligned economic policy opened doors to institutions like the IMF and World Bank. This shift can be seen as a strategic decision to secure much-needed financial assistance, even if it meant adopting structural adjustment programs.
And these programs, often based on neoliberal economics, pushed for liberalization and privatization, right?
Exactly. This involved reducing state intervention in the economy, promoting foreign investment, and focusing on export-oriented growth. The impact was profound, reshaping Ghana's economic landscape and its relationship with the global economic system. The PNDC's second regime's shift towards aggressive foreign economic policy coincided with the implementation of structural adjustment programs, or SAPs. These programs were essentially loan agreements with the World Bank and the IMF.
And what were the conditions attached to these loans?
Austerity measures were a big part. Think cuts to social spending, privatization of state-owned enterprises, and trade liberalization. The idea was to stabilize the economy and promote growth, but the reality was often much harsher.
Harsher how?
Well, consider the impact on social policies. Cuts in healthcare and education led to decreased access for many Ghanaians. Privatization often resulted in job losses, and trade liberalization, while intended to boost exports, sometimes hurt local industries that couldn't compete with cheaper imports. It's a complex equation. GDP growth equals consumption plus investment plus government spending plus exports minus imports. SAPs aimed to influence each of these factors, but the social costs were significant. Let's consider Ghana's national interest. It's not a fixed concept, right? It evolves with leadership, ideology, and global context.
Exactly. During the PNDC era, especially after 1983, the national interest was heavily defined by economic recovery through aggressive foreign economic policy.
So, how did this shape decisions? Think about the structural adjustment programs. Did they truly align with Ghana's long-term national interests? Or were they more about short-term gains dictated by external pressures?
That's the critical question. While SAPs brought in much-needed foreign aid and investment, they also led to privatization, reduced social spending, and potential exploitation of resources.
It's a balancing act. The pursuit of economic development through foreign policy needs to be carefully weighed against potential long-term consequences like increased debt, social inequality, and loss of control over key sectors.
We can use a simple equation to illustrate. National interest equals economic development plus social well-being plus political sovereignty minus external influence plus potential exploitation. The goal is to maximize the positive factors while minimizing the negatives.
Did Ghana's foreign economic policy actually lead to a more open political system? It's a complex question.
Absolutely. Think about it. Aggressive pursuit of foreign investment often requires governments to adopt more transparent and predictable policies. Investors need assurance.
So, economic reforms like privatization and deregulation can inadvertently create pressure for political reforms?
Precisely. For example, to attract foreign capital, Ghana had to improve its legal framework, making it more aligned with international standards. This, in turn, strengthens the rule of law.
But does increased trade also play a role?
Definitely. Greater integration into the global economy exposes domestic industries to international competition. This can lead to demands for greater accountability and efficiency from the government.
So, it's a sort of feedback loop? Economic openness creates pressure for political openness, which then further facilitates economic growth.
Exactly. It's not a direct linear relationship, but the evidence suggests a strong correlation. The pursuit of foreign investment and trade acted as a catalyst for political liberalization in Ghana.
So, what did we learn about Ghana's economic policy?
The analysis suggests that no single theoretical construct fully explains Ghana's foreign and domestic economic policy shifts. Instead, a blend of realism, liberalism, and domestic policy considerations offers a more nuanced understanding.
Can you elaborate?
Certainly, realism helps explain the initial socialist orientation of the PNDCI regime, driven by Cold War allegiances. However, the shift to a more aggressive foreign economic policy under PNDC2, aligning with the West and adopting structural adjustment programs, reflects a blend of liberal economic principles and perhaps Krasner's concept of state strength, the ability to redefine national interests in response to external pressures.
And what about the implications for future policy?
For Ghana and other African nations, it highlights the need for a balanced approach. Blindly following external prescriptions can lead to policies that alienate the people, as Adedeji noted. Future policy design should prioritize national interests, consider domestic socioeconomic realities, and strategically engage with the global economic system. Think of it as optimizing. National interest equals F of domestic needs, global opportunities, strategic autonomy.